They feared him, but not for the reason you think.
When Michael Jordan, the most intimidating force the NBA has ever seen, admits he was afraid of Larry Bird, it instantly changes the conversation. This story goes far beyond box scores or highlight reels, because Bird didn't scare opponents with raw athleticism. He terrified them with his mind and his mouth. He would calmly tell defenders exactly how he planned to score, then execute it flawlessly while they stood helpless. What makes it even more striking is that legends like Magic Johnson, Dominique Wilkins, Gary Payton, and Kobe Bryant all said the same thing. Bird's resume reads almost unreal. 3 NBA titles, 3 straight MVP awards, a feat matched only by Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, along with a Rookie of the Year honor and a dozen All-Star selections. Yet he never looked like a basketball superhero, didn't soar through the air, and wasn't built for dunk contests. Still, by the mid-1980s, his name sat at the very top of the best player alive debate. The roots of that greatness trace back to French Lick, Indiana, a small working-class town where basketball meant everything. Labeled the hick from French Lick, Bird embraced it, growing up with little money and using the game as his escape. By the time he reached Indiana State, he wasn't just scoring points. He was carrying an overlooked program onto the national stage and announcing himself as a force the entire basketball world would fear.
Michigan State controls. Donnelly in the backcourt. The key, many feel, to beating Michigan State is to take the early lead. When the Spartans get in front.
The 1979 NCAA championship game against Magic Johnson's Michigan State remains one of the most watched college basketball games ever. And even though Larry Bird didn't win that night, his impact was undeniable. Michigan State was simply stacked, yet the fact that Bird carried Indiana State all the way to the title game was astonishing on its own. Before he arrived, the Sycamores barely existed on the national radar, but suddenly they were dominating headlines across the country. That matchup didn't just deliver ratings, it sparked one of the greatest rivalries the sport has ever seen. Even in defeat, Bird proved he was no fluke, and when the Boston Celtics finally brought him in, the timing couldn't have been better. Coming off a miserable 29-win season in 1979, Boston transformed overnight, jumping to 61 wins with Bird as a rookie, a stunning 32-game turnaround driven largely by one player. He didn't need time to adjust either, immediately posting 21 points, 10 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists per game, announcing that the NBA had a new force to deal with.
He let me know from the start of the game what he was going to do. He really did. He let me know. Before the game, he told me, he was like, he just shook his head at me. He said, man, it's going to be a night for you.
So what did he put up?
I think he gave me, I think he gave me 40, 46.
Most rookies need years to find their footing in the NBA, but Larry Bird arrived playing like a seasoned superstar from day one. What often gets overlooked is how much he elevated everyone around him, reviving careers that seemed nearly finished. Veterans like Dave Cowens and Tiny Archibald suddenly looked energized again, and Red Auerbach capitalized on the moment by trading for Robert Parrish, drafting Kevin McHale, later adding Dennis Johnson, and keeping key pieces like Cedric Maxwell. Almost overnight, Boston went from struggling to terrifying. By Bird's second season, the Celtics were champions, something that almost never happens in the NBA because rookies simply don't build dynasties. Around the league, respect came first for his numbers, toughness, and the instant turnaround in Boston, but fear followed soon after. Real fear is when opponents start doubting themselves before tip-off, and that reputation grew as Bird began calling his shots out loud. His trash talk wasn't generic boasting, it was a promise. He would calmly explain where he was about to score from, then hit the exact shot while defenders could do nothing but watch. That mental edge broke opponents as much as his skill, because getting scored on is one thing, but getting predicted and then punished is something else entirely. And that psychological warfare was Larry Bird's true weapon, something players like Reggie Miller would experience firsthand early in their careers.
First 2 points of the game for Larry Bird. Celtics have an 11-point lead. Jordan on the rebound.
Reggie Miller grew up worshiping Larry Bird, and then suddenly found himself sharing the floor with his childhood hero, only to get tested immediately. Bird walked straight up to the rookie and casually said, "You're the guy they drafted ahead of me," even though it made no sense since Bird entered the league years earlier. That was the point. Larry wasn't worried about facts. He was focused on getting into your head. For a young player like Reggie, that one line was enough to rattle him. From there, Bird went to work, burying jumper after jumper and making sure the message landed. Reggie has retold that moment countless times because it taught him that Bird wasn't just beating defenders with skill, he was beating them mentally. Every game became psychological warfare, and Larry controlled the battlefield. And if that lesson stung for a rookie, the story Sean Kemp would later tell was even more humbling.
That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. It was God disguised as Michael Jordan.
Sean Kemp entered the league as a jaw-dropping athlete, all power and explosion, the kind of player built for highlight reels, while Larry Bird looked like the complete opposite. On paper, it felt like an unfair matchup in Kemp's favor, but Bird never needed to outjump anyone. During Kemp's rookie season, Bird lined him up, calmly told him exactly where he was about to score, and then drilled the shot he had just predicted. Kemp later admitted it rattled him, because there's no defense for that kind of confidence. You're young, trying to prove yourself, and suddenly a veteran is announcing your failure before it happens, and then making it real. Moments like that showed how Bird controlled games mentally as much as physically, and it set the stage for one of his most famous moments of all time, the legendary three-point contest that didn't even happen during a game.